expressing what I need to be expressing. Every song that we have sung, everyone now a tattered son. Eyes black, I'm short on breath, lost hope and I'm worn to death. Carry on the dear old message, walk away from love invested. Can't help, we all scream as we run from this broken dream. Ramparts have all been busted, shackle of the love we trusted. Let fear dictate your truth, a poison of 100 proof. Don't pretend how sweet that sound, a solemn oath has hit the ground. Shiny eyes are growing pale, thought this love too big to fail. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with a cannonball. Though the storms be in our lives, we set sail today to catch this lie. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with the cannonball. Though the storms be in our lives, we set sail today to catch this lie. It's hard to sway cause it's how I'm feeling, climbing up through a shattered ceiling. We can love but when it's tested, give up all hope invested. Bitterness, how we go fruit, take wine from the lives of youth. We can live without counting the cost, until we suffer loss. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with a cannonball. Though the storms be in our lives, we set sail today to catch this lie. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with a cannonball. Though the storms be in our lives, we set sail today to catch this lie. And every lie we dream, and to our friends we scheme, tearing down the love we hold in. Plant the joy-filled seed, pull up the bitter weed. A dab of faith can move a mountain, what's been lost will be forgotten. A dab of faith can move a mountain, what's been lost will be forgotten. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with a cannonball. Though the storms be in our lives, we set sail today to catch this lie. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with a cannonball. Through the storms be in our lives, we set sail today to catch this lie. We don't write, we don't call, less to live with a cannonball. Through the storms be in our lives, we set sail and then catch this lie.
So you're in South Africa, Liz?
Yes, yeah, South Africa.
Awesome.
I feel I know some about you already because of Dave Emerson.
Okay. He's a good. Yeah, I think I met him years ago, probably at Cornerstone, right?
Yes, yeah. I was actually meant to. I think I was meant to go with him that time to Cornerstone.
Okay.
And things didn't work out. So yeah. But,
Gotcha.
It's how these
Cornerstone was
things.
an awesome thing, man.
Hey.
Cornerstone was an awesome thing.
Yeah, yeah. So how are you doing? At that side, you doing fine, everything, eh?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. My wife and I just purchased a home, so that's really a cool thing. And I took on a full-time teaching job, so I'm teaching history now. So,
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been good. Just trying to, navigate the interesting world everybody finds themselves in these days,
Yeah. And what are you teaching?
High school history. So I'll teach like world history, U.S. history, civics, senior seminar. It just depends on the year and what they have planned for that year.
Okay. So thanks for the opportunity to interview you. And I sometimes feel like when you come up to people, you wonder what they think. Like, who's this douchebag who wants to interview me?
Oh, no. It's cool. I haven't done too many interviews with people from South Africa, so I have a lot of South African friends.
Awesome.
But yeah, there's a few people I know from Johannesburg, and I think they're both from Johannesburg actually. But yeah, it's never been down there though.
Yeah, because also know it, like when you're being interviewed 120 times, you just sometimes don't feel like being interviewed anymore.
Oh. I'm a talker, so I always enjoy it.
That's brilliant. So listen, this is a very different podcast in the sense that it's called Everyone Has a Story. And so this is about the story of the people that I interview. So can we start off a little bit about who you are as a person?
Sure. I am, 37 years old. I grew up in the south side of Chicago. When I was 14, we moved here, so my teen years were all spent in Chicago. I have my two brothers who started Flatfoot with me. One of them's still in the band, and then the other one, he lives in Seattle now. He actually works for a company called Blue Origin, which is a space program. So he's literally a rocket agent, a rocket scientist.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's our old drummer. He's a really smart guy. So, I grew up. My parents were always in the ministry. So my dad was a minister. So we grew up around a lot of church activities and church stuff. Always kind of ingrained in church culture, but not. My parents were a little bit more outside of the conventional church people for the U.S. And the more I traveled, the more I realized that Christians are all real diverse everywhere they go. It's just, and everybody has different ways of going about it, but there is a common thread of Christ in all of it. So there's that element, and then I just started the band when I was 17 years old. Always loved playing music. Always loved Celtic music as well, and having a mix of the two, punk rock and Celtic, was kind of a really exciting thought to me. And then later on, after we started a punk band with bagpipes, we kind of discovered bands like Dropkick Murphys and the Pogues, and we didn't even know when we first started. It took about 2 years before we really started listening to some of these other bands. So it's definitely been an interesting journey, though. 20 years this year of playing music. So
it's quite a long time, in music talk.
Yeah. A lot of ups and downs. It's weird to spend your 20th year as a band barely playing, though. It's kind of it's a strange thing. This is usually a very big point of celebration, and we're not able to even play, so it's kind of a very weird thing.
Didn't you just release an album as well in April, I think?
I did personally, yeah. My wife and I are a part of another band with a few guys called 610.
Yes.
And I started that in 2013 with one of the other guys from Flatfoot, and we currently have the original bagpiper for Flatfoot in the band, and then the current mandolin player for Flatfoot's in the band, and then an old childhood friend plays bass, and then my wife plays accordion, and I sing and write. So, it's been a fun outlet. 20 years of just writing punk rock is not. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's good to mix it up a little bit and step out of your norm. Not that punk rock's not healthy. It's just keeping the aggro going is not the easiest thing as you get older.
Yes, I definitely agree. But still awesome. 16 is nothing to laugh at either. Some awesome music there.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, very similar to like the Pogues and some of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. The idea with 610 was to take more traditional Americana style music and kind of incorporate it with just the music I love too, and actually have the freedom to write differently too. I don't. It's kind of the band that it can be a full band, or it can shrink down to a single. It can just be me playing solo, or it can be the full band of 5 people, or more. So we've done that. Releasing this album, we actually recorded it in Canada with a producer up there, and that was really a sweet experience too.
Okay. I've got actually a friend here in Johannesburg who plays in a punk rock band called Fuzzy Gish, and and he's also got a side project which is called Rambling Bones, and actually that is also one of those kind of bands where you can disassemble the band, if you want to call it that, and play like one man or the full band. It's something that's quite easy to take around the country and things like that. So I suppose 610 is similar, eh? In a way.
Very similar. Yeah, the idea was, because the guys in the band aren't always able to jump in the van and go and tour. My wife and I, when I married my wife actually a few years into 610 being formed, so she wasn't a part of the original album, but when we got married, she just kind of, I was like, please join this band with me, your voice is amazing, you can play accordion and it'll be great. So and she just kind of jumped in and did a good job. We had just lost one of our female members at the time who was playing fiddle for us, and so she went off to college, and I was like, man, this is perfect, just kind of come in and you can step in on the vocal parts that Hannah used to do. And so that worked out really good, and it gave us a chance to travel. Our honeymoon was actually going to Europe right after we got married. On a tour with 610 and Flatfoot, so that was really good.
Oh, no, cool. So with the two bands, do you normally take them together as a unit, or do you try and separate them at times?
With me, we've done together tours. It's a double, and we do some festivals. There's a Scottish Highland Music Festival in Oklahoma in the States that we do together, because they have 2 stages that fit with both genres, both styles of band. So they asked us to come, and for me, it's a double payday. I get to play with both bands.
But how do you manage that? I mean, one band's so energetic, now you say, well, okay, we've just done this, now I must move on to the next band and play another set.
Yeah. It's hard. And honestly, the thing that's hard about it too is, it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit every year at that festival, and which is I don't even know what that would be Celsius, but it's extremely hot.
Yeah, it's like 34 degrees, which is
34. Okay, so it's ridiculously hot, and we're doing, I think the course of that weekend we'll do 10 sets just throughout in a 3-day period. So it's a lot of music, but it's fun. I enjoy it,
Yes. And is there any more plans for Flatfoot 56 to go forward, or is it sort of, do you feel it's coming to an end, or to a rest?
No, we're going to be slowing down a little bit because of my full-time job.
Yes.
But Flatfoot kind of moved more towards just doing weekend runs anyway, because I had a daughter a year and a half ago. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's a lot of fun. And I found that being on the road for like a month or a really long period of time was, I didn't want to miss the early years of her life, the really important years of growth. So when you're around for 20 years, you can kind of call the shots on what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and the rest of the guys had their careers, they had their different jobs that they would come home and do, but I was the guy managing everything and kind of running it all. So now what we're going to do is move back to more of everybody co-share the load of the band and the business side of it. So something we have planned, we just finished a 3-song EP, And the idea is to take one song from each of those and do 2-song splits with other bands.
Okay.
So we're currently in talks with a band called the Rumjacks from Australia about doing a 2-song split with them. And then we're looking into some other bands to possibly talk. Well, I mean, nothing's confirmed yet, but they're very receptive to the idea, and so are we. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Australia is quite a nice place for music as well. I really appreciate the music scene. So.
Yeah, it was a fortunate thing because their new singer is an old friend of ours. We didn't know them before, but when he joined the band, we were just like, hey man, why don't we do something together? Because it would be good for them, I think, for the States, because we're well known here, and it'd be good for us to kind of, have, they have a lot of influence in Australia and Europe, and that's always a good thing too. So maybe it might be an idea, a way to kind of cross-pollinate the fan base a little bit and expose our fans to something a little outside their box that they haven't maybe heard of or not. So, yeah. It works out good. And
maybe the wind gets. Maybe when you take flight and the wind goes a bit towards Africa's way.
Yeah. I would love to, man. There's a really famous. Africa's on my list of places to go in general. I've always just wanted to. I mean, just having the friends that I do, who are from South Africa that live in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like I've always heard of just really interesting things about. Africa and South Africa, and being a history teacher, we cover a lot of different elements of history, world history too. So I've learned a lot about South African history and how it was formed, and so that's interesting. Just the cultural dynamics too, I think would be a really interesting.
I think you'd actually quite like it. Being if you want to call it a historian, person who loves history, I think you'd love South Africa. You could get lost here in terms of its history and things.
Yeah. I mean, it's so frustrating because when you're from another country, and different countries handle this differently, but we don't get the news of what's happening in Africa. I just heard the other day that, what country was it? Oh shoot.
No,
not Ethiopia, but one of the countries in Eastern Africa is actually they overthrew their government, and they're actually having a way more broadened freedoms that they're imposing in their country and allowing for more freedom. It was kind of a cool thing to hear, but I don't hear that. I don't hear what's going on in different countries in Africa all the time, and so it's kind of difficult, but.
I think sometimes also agenda-based. A lot of the news you guys hear is agenda-based as well. In terms of like you get like not the actual truth, if you want to put it that way. It's more leaning towards a specific goal or ideology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really frustrating because in America everything is agenda-based, and it's a full-time job we actually teach in school now how to decipher what the agenda of what you're reading is, and how to make sure that you're not. And the weird thing with us too is that we also have groups from outside America that are trying to infiltrate and put out stories and information that is not even the truth, just to cause chaos. And it's done a lot of crazy things here. So we have to learn how to be better at processing information, fact-checking information. And we have to do it with our own government. Like, it's crazy, So it's kind of a strange thing to not be able to trust the people that you hired to take care of everything. But I guess that's.
It's becoming a global thing, though, as well. It's a pandemic on its own.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not strange. It's probably been that way since the beginning. But it's so weird. It's so weird. And there's different things that are becoming more and more. It's like there's political religions in a way. Like there's ideologies that are so valuable to people that it becomes anything that doesn't agree with this ideology, I shut off instantly. It's like, and I get that point if it's like straight up, racism, the KKK, that's fine. I get that you shut that off and close it down. But it's not even you can't even have a conversation about certain things without. That's one of the things I appreciate about Europe is when you go there, you can generally sit down and have a conversation intellectually about anything, and you'll get critical thinking pretty effectively used. And I think it's something you'll see. We're going to see in America step up a bit more, because it's weird. I mean, I'm a part of a generation that didn't grow up with the internet or the phone. We had pagers, you know, so
Same, yeah.
It was about as exciting as it got. So the world has to really acclimate quickly, and I think, in my opinion, I think a lot of what we're seeing is people not being able to. They're just kind of learning how this works, and they're trying to acclimate to something that is progressing really quickly, and they don't always know how to do that. And you have older generations that don't read the world that way at all. You have younger generations that don't have the wisdom of life yet, but they're really good with getting information quickly.
Yeah, but life is moving a lot quicker than what it did back say when we were younger, for instance. And to try and process that is quite something. And I think people are trying to, then you got to try and find your feet in amongst all this activity that's occurring. You know, the speed of things.
Yeah, and I think it's also important too. Like, I think one of the things that we have going on in America is that there's a lot of rhetoric and sloganeering, but we don't always know when we use a slogan what that slogan stands for. Like, the slogan may sound great, but if it's a group, you know what I mean? Like, if it's a group that, you know, that group stands for something, and do I even know what that group stands for? What are I need to go to their website, fact check, and find out, you know, I agree with the slogan. I don't know if I agree with everything that slogan represents or that group represents. So you got to do your due diligence, you know, to find out what things are about, you know.
Oh, we actually tackled a topic in the band The Alzheimer's with Dave. We actually released an album called Sloganeering.
Yeah. It's because we live in a world where people get their information from memes. And memes can be so quickly, they can be so quickly doctored to say whatever you want to say.
Exactly, yeah.
And people don't even bother with the real quote, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. but it's good to, otherwise, it's good to be able to come talk to you again. And then the other thing is, like, you know, as you're talking here, I was just thinking to myself, when you come down sitting to writing a song, what are some of the processes? Does this help? Does these things that you see around you form part of the lyrical content that you eventually put out?
Yeah. I think what's weird is that, like, I have found that there are songs that, like, Flatfoot has written that we wrote it 6 years ago, and when we wrote it, I had a general idea of what it was about, but I didn't understand the full ramifications of what it turned out to be about, if that makes sense.
Yes.
There's so many different things that have kind of come out. Like, Flatfoot wrote a song years ago called Inglewood. That song was about my experiences in a neighborhood in Chicago called Inglewood, which is at the time was an extremely violent. Here we see what's happening, because in Chicago there's a long history of silencing what street violence is about. They don't talk about it very much. And so that song kind of was talking about that. So those experiences, and I would go there with a prayer group, and we would just meet with pastors and talk and kind of just intercede for that area of the city. Or you start to grow a love for places that you invest in. You start to grow a love for places that you see need encouragement, or want to be, you know, that need to be lifted up and encouraged. And the song is basically about, I see you, you know. Here we are 6 years later, and it's exactly what people need to hear and see. And so it's kind of so my song process is going through, it's not all socioeconomic, it's not always very Flatfoot or 610 are not extremely political bands, but there is elements of seeing the world and trying to convey an idea through a story.
Okay.
And so one of my favorite things to do lately was for the 610 project is we offered for people to be able to hire us. We were doing a crowdfund, so they would donate to our album, and we would write a song specifically for them about anything they wanted. And what's cool about that is they send me all of this information that means something to them, and I get to put into a song and record it for them. And it's such a fun experience because for me, there's really not a lot of my heart put into it, other than taking my songwriting ability and crafting something beautiful for them. And that's been it's been really fun. It's actually kind of like taking a puzzle, doing a word puzzle, and doing a song that I don't have to. I don't have to envision how this song will relate to our fans. I don't have to think about the bigger, broader impact of promoting this song or making it a hit or whatever. I can just write a song for people specifically, and that's a beautiful thing and helpful for me.
Yeah, quite an honor, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah. And now you're quite a tall gent. You're 6'10", obviously, I take it from the band name.
Yeah.
How do you manage buying cars, getting... why I'm saying this is I've got a brother-in-law who's 6'6", and I know the struggles and the things that he goes through. So explaining the struggles of a really tall gent.
It's interesting. Like, so there used to be a place, actually, they just went in bankruptcy, called JCPenney's here, and they actually had tall jeans. My height is exactly just at the cusp, so I can pull off. We call them 34s, 36s. Depends on what the make. So I'm just at the brink of being able to handle certain things. Now you learn. The internet makes a lot of things easier. I do have to drive certain cars. I can't drive every kind of car. Mid-size or SUV style is what I have to look for, because I just don't fit in a small one. But
I'm sure no one's going to mess with you. I'm sure no one's going to mess with you down Dark Alley.
Yeah. Well, the thing is it's interesting is there's a psychology that big guys have. We think in a way that most people, I've realized this only more recently, is, when you're younger, you just think everybody thinks like you, and when in reality they don't. And what I realized was that I'm always aware of the presence that I bring into a room, because people have told me about it my entire life. And so because of that, I know I can't get away with anything, so I have to walk and carry myself in a way that's pretty responsible in order to use my size in a responsible manner. So like, you'll notice that a lot of big guys are not aggressive, because we have to temper that pretty early. If we're too aggressive early on, we will always be seen as the aggressor and as the bully, because we have size. And
my brother-in-law is a real teddy bear as well. A real teddy bear, my brother-in-law. Like I said, he's 6'6", but a real just brother-in-law, just a nice teddy bear.
Yeah. Well, both my brothers are 6'6", and they, and they're smaller to me, but they're big guys in their own right. And but we don't have to deal with certain things that other people do. I mean, sometimes people will walk up to me and want to take pictures with me, and I think it's because of the band, and it's not. They don't even know who the band is. It has everything to do with the fact that I'm huge, So it's funny.
So what were you fed when you were smaller? Right?
Say what?
Say, what were you fed? What food did you eat?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm getting text messages here. I'm letting you pull up here.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
I think you must have been given something special to eat to be that tall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, special to eat. Yeah, for sure. I always tell people it's Midwestern corn, and cereal, but it could be deep dish pizza. I'm working on my width right now, not my height. Just kind of getting my belly bigger. And
Yeah, I'm finding
that takes a little bit different
yeah,
things.
yeah, I'm finding with age I've got to work on the other dimension.
Yeah. I'm at a different growth pace in my life.
Yeah. But
so,
with the two bands now, from a sort of realistic income point of view and stuff like that, what advice would you give to other guys who are in sort of bands that are starting up? From whether it's to take it as a career or as part-time, what sort of advice would you give guys? You've been a long time in music, you know quite a lot about what it is to be on tour, what's involved in being a band.
Yeah. I actually have a company called 610 Artist Mentoring, so this is what we do.
Oh, okay.
I'll just sit down with bands. Yeah, so I totally understand what you're. I talk to bands all the time about this kind of stuff, and obviously we're in a very strange time in the world's history where music is completely being killed business-wise. So I think the thing that they're going to have to do in the future is to really make sure that their craft is honed. Before COVID, everybody could just go out and start a band and promote yourself. It's really easy to promote yourself. You don't always need a label to do that. If you know social media and things like that really, really well, you just kind of go about, doing it. There has been a big change though. Back in the day, people actually valued music a lot more than they do now. Now it's a consumer product. It's not a part of your life as much as it's something you consume. And that's unfortunate because sometimes you put 6 to 8 months into a record being put out, sometimes a year, and then people are done listening to it within the first week on Spotify, and you're like, man, and you got paid nothing for all the listens, you know what I mean? So, what I would say to bands is really, really spend a lot of time on, one, making your music good and quality, and not, don't go too big too quick, but really hone in and really get what you want to be, so you don't have to rebrand later on. You don't want people to not take you seriously because you didn't know what you were doing right away. And the process, I'm not saying you have to just become instantly great. I'm just saying start out in your local community and build from there. Now the danger is that you put out your first album, it sucks royally, and everybody knows you for that album that really sucked royally. So, and that's the problem, because everything's so accessible. Anybody around the world can hear that,
and lots of people commenting more than before as well.
Yeah, and they're not. They're also not. People don't have the time to deal with it, which is unfortunate because I think bands deserve. We needed it. I mean, it was about 5 years before Flatfoot started being okay. There's a reason why we have 2 albums that are not anywhere to be found, because they were not very good. We were learning who we were, and we were learning our instruments.
I hope it's not Knuckles Up.
Huh?
Yeah,
No. There's two albums before Knuckles Up, and they're only available through a digital medium, and they're only available to our the Alley Mob, which is the Flatfoot supporters group, which is worldwide. Is there now? Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go. For some reason your vocals just disappeared. And as you moved, the vocals just went, so I thought, okay. Yeah, you were saying the Alley Mob.
Yeah. So I think the best thing about you is really make sure that you spend a lot of time and energy getting your brand figured out. And branding, I mean, that's visual branding. Because here's the thing, most of the money that you're going to make as a band when you first start out is going to be through t-shirts and CDs and like physical product that you can sell at your show or through your web store. And if you spend some good time creating good images that actually people are going to want to wear for a long time, you're going to help promote your band more than if you just Yeah, so spend the time finding you want, and then get a brand that will brand bands. I often say music creators and what we're doing, what we are clothing and line people, and is there to promote the t-shirts, because that's how we pay for gas and everything. It's from pay to town.
Yeah. And
so
sorry, it went dead there for a few minutes. I couldn't get that last bit. Can you just repeat that last bit? For some reason, as you moved, it just the vocals went again.
Oh, sure. The last bit is just make sure that you spend time on your branding as a band.
Okay.
The images that are associated, like if you look at the Ramones, you'll always think of the presidential Ramones seal.
Yes.
Or when you think of the Clash or Black Flag, you'll always see the star. You know, if you think of the Black Flag, you'll think of the four bars in the Black Flag logo.
Yes.
Those symbols are really important because that's going to be the thing that your fans that really like your music are going to take on and want to grab and make their own, and they should, so that depends on what style of band you are too.
Yes,
that's important to because within punk rock there's a lot of branding involved, but not every genre. I don't think country has as much branding as maybe punk rock would,
Yes. And I mean, with Flatfoot 56, they got you as the mascot. I mean, you're just so big and everything. I mean, it's no Flatfoot 56. Oh, that tour guy,
Yeah. It's funny what people take as far as imagery for a band too. It's not always what the band intends.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with you on that. But you've also played with some interesting bands. I mean, one of my favorite bands is Street Dogs, and it looks like you guys have done quite a bit with the Street Dogs.
Yeah, we're old friends with the Street Dogs. Johnny Rio produced Blackthorn and Toil for us. And he's the bass player for the Street Dogs. We toured with them a bunch. So wonderful band, wonderful, diverse group of guys. They're very, very fun to be on the road with. They have a lot of history combined as a group. It was really sad to see them go this year, earlier this year, and call it quits. But life changes for a lot of people.
But doesn't Mike have another side project almost similar to like what you've got going?
I'm not sure. I haven't.
FM something, I think it's called, or something. I can't remember now offhand. I remember seeing something that he.
Was it FM Static?
No, not FM Static. There's something like got a number to it. It was also similar to kind of your kind of thing where it's it's more acoustically based than punk rock.
Okay.
I've actually probably got the. Sorry, I'm a CD collector, so I've probably got the CD somewhere in my collection. That's
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've got your guys' albums and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. No, I haven't talked to Mike in a while, just because just haven't been able to connect with him. But
yes.
There might be. He might be. It'd be great. He should be playing music. He's so good at it,
Yeah, I know Johnny Rue had some side project as well going for a time as well. That I know I've got one of his projects as well.
Who does?
Drew, the guy who produced your Blackthorn.
Oh, Johnny Rio.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, is it? It's not Cowboy Oi stuff, is it?
No.
He's doing these country covers of Oi music for a while. I need to look up and see what those guys are up to. I know Lenny Lashley, who was in the band, he's doing his stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, Flatfoot hasn't. I think the last time I saw John, what's the year? I probably saw Johnny about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so it's quite a while then, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
so
I'll send a message every once in a while, but we haven't been touring as much as we used to. We had a few member changes about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And ever since then, we've been doing some shows here and there and doing some tours, but not like we used to.
Yeah.
Because we've been writing more. So.
And also, I mean, obviously family. I mean, you guys are now got families, most of you. I mean, now as well. So it makes it a bit harder just to hit the road.
Yeah, I think one of the most profound things I've ever heard from a band was from Coxbar. I don't know if you ever listen to Coxbar, but
No.
yeah, check Coxbar out. They're awesome. They've been around since 1974, I want to say. And I asked them when we played with them a few times. They're kind of like an legendary English oi punk band. And what they say, I asked them, I'm like, so you guys kind of fell off the map for a while, and now you're touring all over the world. What happened? And he basically looked at me. He just said, our kids are old enough now. We're free. We can go. Like our families were a priority, and now we can go out and do what we love. And it's the same members since the beginning. Like they have one guy who's the new guy. He's been with them for 17 years. So, and it's just, you know, still one of the best live shows I've ever seen. They're so good.
Awesome.
They're all in their like 60s, you know. So,
yeah. I've got some old friends who are in a band called D-Mob, which is an old oi band from the late 70s. And there, I mean, when I was talking to the one guy who's the drummer now in the band, and he was saying, I mean, they're also in their like 60s, and he was saying like it's quite funny, their ritual to playing in concert now is sleeping before the concert, you know, like 10 to 20 minutes before the concert. Hey, you guys must wake up now, you know. Let's hit the stage, you know.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But I think that's the thing, like punk rock specifically and all that.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It's not a high school band, you know.
Yeah.
For a lot of these guys, it's everything. For us, even like we're musicians and we play that kind of music. It's not going to change. You know, your full time might change, but you're still probably going to be a band. And I'm not a fan of being a band that breaks up only to play again in 3 years. You know, like that happens to a lot of people. But you know, we were just kind of like, well, let's just be a band that's around. We have our fans; they're really faithful. We have very, very devout fans. Like they're just like, that's one thing that we've been really blessed by is like we have fans that are just like, I don't know, they're usually a part of the Alley Mob, like I've mentioned before. They're kind of, that's like, and that group, they'll hunt down limited edition Flatfoot stuff from years ago, and they'll buy it all up, like off of eBay, and they'll actually hunt down. We actually discovered through that group that there was a company that was reproducing old scarves that we had put out years ago and selling them on eBay. And I'm like, wait a second, why are they selling? They've sold like 15 of these, and there was only 50 made, and we sold all 50. Why are these being sold? And they're all like, buy them up, and we're like, wait a second, guys, like, you're not buying original 50 or you know, because we care about the numbers because it's important, you know. We sold things based off of the limited edition element of it, and then to have this company making more of them is just like, no, you know. So, and then this year, this is really funny. We found a small Irish country singer in Ireland that was covering our song "Shiny Eyes" for Flatfoot, and I was like, "Oh, cool, he covered it." And then I looked at his post of it, and he was claiming that it was his. Like, he completely said, "Check out my new single, Shiny Eyes," and had no reference to Flatfoot whatsoever. And so our fans got a hold of that, and they ripped him a new one. Yeah, I wasn't trying. I wrote him, and he was doing well. Like, it wasn't some little thing. But I wrote him an email and just said, "Hey man, like, it'd be really cool if you could post who wrote the song that you are putting out as yours, and that it's a cover, just because that's the proper thing to do. You know, otherwise it's plagiarism." And he wouldn't do it. Like, he wouldn't acknowledge it, and so, like, our fans just all jumped on and started commenting on his post, like, "Hey, this is a great song when I heard it 10 years ago," you know, like, I just gotta be like, and I don't know, it was a very strange thing to see that, and nobody usually, I mean, I don't mind if people cover us, that's great, but I would never cover anybody and say that it's mine. That's just bad form.
No, definitely, I agree. What a story to tell, eh?
Yeah, and I think, it's not like there was a ton of money he was making off of us, but he was discrediting his own brand. He was discrediting he's got a great voice and he can sing and it's great, but he just, I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he was naive. Maybe it was a company that was trying to build this star and they didn't think it would fly. They thought it would fly under the radar. I don't know, but
yeah, I thought, it's just a minor band, Flatfoot 46, you know.
Yeah.
Not gonna notice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just funny. I don't know. Like, I don't get very buttered over that stuff.
Yeah, me neither. So, yeah. But I think but it's cool. It's almost a compliment to you guys. I mean, the fact that he's like that he feels the song is so good, he's gonna make it his own.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's definitely, it's interesting to hear a 17-year-old Irish person sing a song that was meant for, you know, this love experience I had in my life.
Hey, jeez.
Oh well, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so you're a kid now, eh? You say 1.5 years old?
She's 1.5.
Yeah. And how does it feel to be a dad?
Oh, it's great. It's one of the most underrated things in the world that we live in. You know, it challenges you at your very core.
Yes.
It definitely pushes your buttons, but at the same time, it's such a joy to see. It's inspiring to see somebody who sees the world with such excitement.
Yeah.
I think that's the best part about it. They reinstill in you the wonder of being alive. And that's an important thing to be reminded of sometimes, you know.
And I'm interested. I mean, I'm a dad as well. So you have certain aspirations for your kids. If you had to talk to another dad at the moment, what would be one of the legacies you would love to leave for your child?
Let's see here. I think and this might not be shooting for the stars, but I think one of the things that I really want for my kid is that they're able to talk to adults and respect people they come in contact with in a way that sees the humanity in everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest. If my kid, I don't care what she does, but if she can see every person around her with seeing them having value, no matter who they are, I think that's the number one. I'll win as a dad. Like, to see that she respects people, even if they're not respectable. Like, she learns how to honor the good, the gold in people, rather than only look for the negative. Because I think that's the thing. Like, whether people believe it or not, there is things inside of each one of us that could help make the world a better place. And unfortunately, those things don't get celebrated the way that they should be. We kind of tend to beat each other down, and that's what we focus on. So if I have a kid that can see the gold in people and celebrate that, I will be a very happy dad.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I think that's well said. You know.
Thank you.
And I think this is what this show is all about. It's you know, like, I'm really trying to sort of put a different spin on the interviews that generally get asked, or the questions that generally get asked and stuff like that, because I feel we need a bit more positivity and a bit more like sort of light out there in the world, you know. And I think we're hanging so much on all this negative stuff that, you know, like it's getting harder to look at the light, if you want to call it that, you know. So
well, I think people are losing hope, and as a musician, you're in a unique position. Like, I think unfortunately, well, I never want to classify people's own creative outlets, but we don't, what's the word? I don't want to leave this world and be remembered for being somebody that tore people down or constantly was the soundtrack to their demise.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that we said early on for Flatfoot, was that we didn't want to be the band that destroyed that created a soundtrack to somebody's personal destruction, and it's really key. It's really key to not. For us, that was kind of the message and the main thing we wanted to do all the time. So
I think you guys have seeded it. I mean, you know, if you look at your fans, you know, and stuff like that. Like when I've been on the internet and looking, just sort of exploring your band at a greater length before the interview, I think you've got a very well-rounded sort of fan base. It's actually amazing to see the kind of people that are looking up to you and stuff like that as well. You know.
Mm. Yeah, what's cool about the fan base is that like only in the last few years did we kind of revamp and grow. I keep bringing up the Ally Mob, and sorry, but it's just one of those things where they kind of are an example of the culture that the band is creating. We get to see it. So like the people that it attracts, though, which is really interesting. By the way, my little brother Kyle, who's in the band, just walked in. Say, Kyle.
How's it?
Yeah, he came over to get some paint from me, so he's gonna be doing that. But yeah, the quality of people like is just amazing. Like when COVID hit, the Ally Mob started raising money by selling like special stuff that they had to each other to raise money to send it to people who were in the mob that had lost their jobs or who were in a difficult position. And these guys, you know, there was a family that was in a van that crashed their vehicle. The mob threw money in to help them get a new vehicle. So it was like, I'm like, man, I didn't even have to tell you guys to do this. This is who you are. And it's just like, we've created an awesome culture of great people. Like, this is amazing. Like, they're not just great because they like my band. They're great human beings. You know, like,
that's pretty awesome.
This is what they do.
I think it's such a nice legacy to leave as well. Do you think you got these fan bases that are like that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's a blessing. We can be happier with it.
You haven't got guards running around trying to kill one another.
Listen, bands that have been around for a while, you have stories of just wild things that have happened.
Well, while we're on that topic of wild things, have you ever had any wild, crazy fans that you thought, you know, like, right. let's run?
Can you think of any, Kyle, that come to your mind, wild and crazy fans? Oh yeah, we have this crazy, and they're awesome. There's a great group of people, but we have this bar league football group in Russia called Beamish that are huge. They're like an Irish themed soccer football team, and they're all avid Flatfoot fans. So whenever we go to Moscow, like they are just die-hard Flatfoot fans, and they've given us honorary scarves, and they're at every show, and they travel on the train as we go places, and they're just die-hard crazy, and we love them to death, but they're nuts. Like they're always drunk, like they're never sober, and we don't even speak their language at all, most of them, but like they're so fun-loving, and they're just crazy. And they'll start chanting Beamish, Beamish, and it's like it's the craziest thing. As far as fans are concerned, oh man, I'd have to think about it. There's been a bunch of just crazy experiences at shows, but stuff that just makes you like scratch your head and wonder, you know, you're like, what were they thinking, or what's going on, you know? I think the coolest thing is when this isn't crazy, but it's kind of neat. Is I've had a lot of people grow up with the band, and then when they have kids, they'll name the band. They'll name their kid. There's a few kids that are named Tobin, you know, like who I'm like, man, that's like one of the biggest humbling things. It's like, I gotta make sure I never start sucking as a human being, otherwise I'll make this be a horrible, you know, named after a horrible person, yeah. So, but it's just kind of it's a process of going through all the different things. So,
Yeah, but it's amazing. Yes, it's nice you can tell those kind of stories though. I mean,
Yeah.
and have the opportunity to tell those stories to people and then have that effect on other people. It's a positive effect as well. You're making a difference.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to be able to say, and very humbling. I don't want to say it in an arrogant way. It's definitely not the heart I want to say it in, but it's just very it's really cool,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as myself and Dave when we formed the Old Timers. The whole point was to sort of, if this isn't going to be something that's going to be like negative or cause separation or anything like that, we don't want to do this thing,
Sure.
The whole point of the band was to build up people, not break them down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely, you take it off? Yeah. Okay, we'll see. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, we'll see that. Yeah, no problem. When you're done with that paint, just let me know and I'll get the rest from you. Okay, thanks. Sorry, my brother had to come over and get some paint.
It's no problem.
Yeah, so it was I think it's all about what you want to camp around, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you have a tendency to camp around, here, let me put this in a better way. My personal philosophy on life has always been, I'm not defined by the horrible things that happen to me. It doesn't make me. It's not. Those are the things. Those things will shape and influence me, but they are not who I am. And unfortunately, I think sometimes people, and that's not to diminish what people have gone through. That's not my heart at all in that. What I'm saying is we are made so much more than the crappy things that people do to us. And if we only focus on those negative things that have happened to us, we will miss a life full of being able to change the world for a positive thing. Don't get me wrong. I've had some things happen to me that sucked royally, and they are hard, and they definitely need time to heal, and that's important. But I need to make sure that I learn from those things, but they don't define me. And so that's easy for me to say. I think if somebody has, if somebody gets their leg chopped off by another person, it's hard to not let the fact that you now have one leg not define you. I mean, it's a big deal, and I know I can probably say that pretty flippantly, but does that loss, and I'm using this as a metaphor, but does that loss of a leg change the value of that human being? No. It doesn't change who they are. It doesn't change their spirit and their heart, and now they can choose to let it change and impact the rest of their life. And that's their choice, but I want to be somebody who champions people's value above anything that even they do. I mean, I think that's something that we found early was we'd go on tour with these legendary punk bands early on in our career, and people would warn us and they would tell us like, oh, those guys aren't to be trusted, or those guys are scumbags, or those guys have a long history of being whatever. And we would decide before we'd even meet them, I'm going to treat these guys by looking at their potential, not necessarily looking at what I see in front of me. So I'm going to speak to the potential, and maybe that probably comes from like my faith background. Jesus doesn't look at us, for what's really in front of him. He looks at us for what he knows we are, and he speaks to the potential in front of him, not necessarily to the sad sap that's in front of him right now. So I think that's just the way that by doing that, we would find that the relationships with these guys were so good, and they appreciated us a lot. We appreciated them way more because we gave them a chance to be something that a lot of people don't give them a chance to be. And some of those guys turned out to be some of my best friends, over the years. So
I think that's a good place to sort of in this time. I think that's a very nice sort of conversation we've had.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, and thanks again for your time. I do appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having good questions. It's nice to do So tell me about the band name, or tell me about when the band started. It's fine, but it's like it gets old after a while. So they have
but as I said, this is a sort of like a different show, a different angle, sort of, you know, to the normal angles that guys normally take, you know, to asking questions to bands and stuff, you know. So I think, you know, even myself being in a band, you know, where did the band name come from? Why, you know, it can get tiring. It's sort of like becomes generic. It's like computer. You know.
Here's the ticker tape explanation of what, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's really it's funny because you as an interviewer could look that up in 2 seconds and find another interview where I've said it already. You know what I mean? So it's kind of I don't know. I always appreciate guys that actually. I find it to be more old school guys that have the good questions. They're the ones that are interested in the in-depth stuff, and I appreciate doing those interviews way more than getting caught up in all the norms, you know. So
when was the first album? You know, and stuff like I've had questions like it. So when was the first album done? Well, you know, like Wikipedia's got it down.
People need to be given grace as they process too, you know, as they're learning the craft of it. So is this a blog or is it a video?
It's a new thing. See, I used to have a radio show many years ago called the JCAC Slam and Dance Show. And obviously played guys like you and stuff on it and stuff like that. I always wanted to interview you at that point in time. But just,
that's awesome.
You know, I never got around to it. So I thought, well, now I'm doing this other thing and I want to do it a bit different, where I want to have a bit more in-depth conversation with the people, not just this, what you call surface conversation. You know, with stuff that people can get easily on the internet. You know, you can look up everywhere. So that's sort of so it's brand spanking new. You're about the 4th, 5th person I've interviewed, and I just thought, it'd be a nice thing, especially during this time where people are sort of feeling, what was the word, negative or troubled or something like that, because maybe they've lost their job, you know, and they're fighting with. You know, things in their head, you know, like do I commit suicide, or what do I do, you know? And I just thought to have something where guys that people look up to, giving positive accounts of things.
Yeah,
you know, can actually help somebody.
It's been really interesting. Not interesting. It's been kind of sad because, like, I mean, there was the Cornerstone years for us, where there was a lot of community within the faith and music.
Yeah.
And when Cornerstone went away, you started to see a mass exodus of young people walking away from their faith, and in America at least. And you started to see a lot of deconstruction of their faith without reconstructing anything, or deconstruction to only arrive in disenfranchisement with the church or whatever. And I think there's a place to reevaluate where you stand, or to change your perspective on what the revelations of God that you've experienced and stuff. That's fine, but as long as you stay in the conversation and not just, you know, turn into cynical, I'm done, you know, completely. But keep the search for truth going.
Yes.
And that's what I say to people all the time. But like, I think to watch band after band that I was friends with, who we were comrades in the faith and comrades in the style, have a lot of those guys, just not all, but a lot of them just walk away from Jesus. Was really hard, but like, it made me scratch my head too, because I was like, man, like a lot of those old JCHC bands, you know, like, we became friends with a lot of them, and over the years, like, a lot of them are still believers, but a lot of the guys walked away, and it was like, man, like, where was the passion? Like, because to me, like, Jesus he's awesome. Like, I don't understand. Yeah, like, no matter what crappy experience I can have at any church, what would ever make me walk away from him? Like, he's what it's about. Like, go find another body of believers to hang out with. Like, Jesus is, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what that goes back to what I was saying, is like, maybe it's because I'm a PK and I couldn't leave because of my life was the church, but like it was. I was never defined by what another Christian did to or said about my family. They said a lot of shitty things, like it was really bad, but it couldn't be based off of what people said or did that was wrong, because I knew people were flawed and they needed grace and they needed love, even if they weren't asking for grace or love. And because I'm that person, you know, like it's Romans chapter 2, you know, like if you do any of these things, you're condemning yourself, like, and I've done those things. So like, I think, yeah, I don't know what I'm going with this.
Just keep going.
Yeah, well, I like my heart is to encourage people. It's like, listen, you can do this in the most. I mean, because you probably know Dougal then, right? Or you've heard of Dougal?
Oh no, yeah, I've know of Dougal.
Yeah. Well, Dougal has been probably one of the most influential best friends of mine in my life, and I love him because he swears more than anybody I've ever heard of, like language-wise. He's foul-mouthed but he's Scottish, and so he gets a write-off for it, you know. But he loves Jesus, and that's what it's about. And
You're not even watching this, eh?
that's cool. I do, you know, I love that guy. So, but just one of the things that he was saying that he wrote a paper about when he was in college, because he went to my church here in Chicago when he was in the States. He said that, you know, for Christians who are subculture oriented, we're used to thriving in environments that are completely adverse to who we are. If you play punk rock and you're a Christian, you're hated. There's no doubt about it. Like, you're going to be like Flatfoot. I personally believe that if Flatfoot wasn't a Christian band or wasn't open about our faith, we would have been huge. No doubt about it. We would have been huge. But that was a big hindrance, and I wouldn't change it for the world, like, because it's who we are and it's authentic. Like, that would have been selling out to me to not be real about who I am and what I believe. And so, but that being the case, you know, like, to me that's punk rock. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't fake it. Like, you don't fake any of it. Like, and it's cheesy if you do. Like, your journey's important. I don't want to discredit people's journey either, but
No.
For us, and I'll be honest with you too. Like, Flatfoot has had members where, you know, that have gone through their crisis of faith and their journey as well. And it's been interesting to try to maintain standing with people as they go through that journey, seeing the value in that journey. That's been hard, and it's been really good as well. It's helped me to give a lot more grace to people, because I've literally had members who kind of stepped away from God. They didn't stop believing and become like atheists or anything. They just didn't really. They weren't fostering the faith in them, and to give them the chance to kind of process while they were out playing with Flatfoot was hard, but it taught me a lot. And to realize that my faith is only as good as the way that I treat these guys that God's called me to be in a band with, that was really good for me to realize. It's like, listen, all of our stances and the stuff, you know, aside, they're going to know that I'm a Christian because of the way I love these guys, not them.
Yeah.
It's easy to love somebody for a 3-hour period on the course of the night. It's not easy to love the people that are in your band and you are living in a small space with. Like, you're closer to band members than you even are with your own spouse most of the time. Like, and if I can't love them, how much is my faith even real? You know, like, Jesus went on tour with 12 guys. Like, that's what he did for 3 years. Like, you know, and it was intense camping. Like, it wasn't in a van listening to, you know, Anthrax and, you know, eating Cheetos. It was, you know, like, he went on tour, and he went on tour where they were getting their lives threatened on a regular basis and being called out on a regular basis. So, like, you know, So yeah, it's an interesting thing, but yeah, you gotta stay rooted in Christ, because if you start looking at people, and when they start to flounder and fall away, your faith needs to be able to withstand that, because it should have been based on something bigger than just the strength of the guy next to you. You know.
No, I agree fully on that. Well, that was very nicely. That was very nicely said.
I should write a book, huh? Maybe I should write a book.
It's not a bad idea. Eh? I think all just sit here now, just go like package it now into, before you go to bed tonight, just put it into a book, into a notepad.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Might work. And in all this though too, brother, like, I'm a teacher of high school, right? So I teach high school kids. I teach mostly kids that do not have the same color skin as I have.
Yeah.
I'm in inner city Chicago, which is one of the most violent cities in America. It was like 2 weeks ago, we had 11 murders in one weekend. So like, and per capita, it's a rough place, but it's a place that's really, it's a wonderful place, but it's just got some really rough aspects to it.
Yeah.
And you have a tendency to start realizing that your experience isn't always what the experience of other people are, and you need to take that into account as well. And that's something I'm wrestling with right now as I'm ready to go into the next school season, is like, with all of the racial upheaval in America, how do I make room for these kids' stories and not just tell them how they have to be, but allow them to process with me what's going on? And how do I bring Jesus into that? You know what I mean? Like, not as a proselytizing agent, or as a, they're not, you know, it's not my burden to do that. It's one of the things that it's my heart to do that, because Jesus has brought me hope. Why wouldn't I want to share that with everybody? You know. So, but I mean, obviously I'm limited because there's only so much I can say. But
yeah, no, look, I understand. I mean, it's like I feel more for one friend. One of my oldest American friends is Joe Yerker of the Insiders.
Oh yeah, Joe. Yeah.
No, we go way back. Very, very good friend of mine. And I just wondered about for him. I mean, he's a cop, you know, and I just try to think, you know, like a cop in these days. I mean, it's quite something to carry, the weight of a cop today, you know, in society. Yeah, you're an easy target.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and I think he wrote something about that recently.
Yes.
Actually, Joe's really funny. Insiders were one of the first bands I got into when I was young, and my world. It's a weird thing, because I went to Cornerstone and I saw them play, and then the next morning I went to the shower house to take a shower, and Joe, the singer of the Insiders, is right there, butt naked, walking around. And it definitely, I mean, it is just, that's what the shower, you know, you go take a shower, right? But it's a weird thing to be like, I can't, like, and now I'm friends with him, and it's fine. But it's a weird thing, because it's like, man, like, I never want to do that to a fan, you know? Because it does mess with your mind to the fan, you know? I'm permanently scarred, so Joe, you know, I love Joe. He's amazing. But
I mean, I should tag him in this one.
Yeah.
No, he's a wonderful guy. We did a project many years. I'm talking many years back. We were doing a surf documentary here in Cape Town with somebody else, and I was asked to try and find musicians that would contribute to it, and he was one of the guys that eventually I managed to get hold of him, and we sort of like worked it out, and he came and sort of donated a song towards the surf movie, and that's when our relationship, that was easy, I don't want to lie to you, maybe 15 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
when they were having a resurgence.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe. Those guys were interesting because their background was Salvation Army,
Yes.
which was not common within the Christian music world or music in general. And they also did a documentary years ago where they were on tour with 3 secular ska bands.
Yeah, Skeletons and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was very that at the time was not something that Christian bands did a whole lot of, because they didn't need to. There was a whole genre specific, like in our minds, we didn't have a huge Christian punk community in Chicago to be a part of. So we would go to California and play for all the JCHC punks out there, and we would, you had punk rock kids like Mohawks, and they'd look about as punk rock as could be, and we talked to them, and we're like. And they would tell us like, we don't go to secular punk shows. We're just like, what? Like we had no concept of that because like the punk scene with the punk scene, there wasn't JCHC scene and then everything else. We didn't have the luxury of that many bands, so like we were a part of the punk scene in Chicago, and it blew our mind that they had never, like these punk rock kids had never even been to a secular punk ever. Like my first punk show was the UK Subs, watching the UK Subs, and, like, and that dude was about 80 years old when I saw him back 20 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's not that old, but that was my first, like, I'd go see bands like the Supertones, like that. That was, I don't consider it to be my street punk show, But it's interesting stuff. Joe's a good dude.
Yeah, no, he's a good dude. I've always got great respect for him and stuff like that. Also seems to be a tall guy. I don't know what they feed you guys in America. But anyways, listen, Tobin, so great chatting to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time. I think we've gone on for over an hour already.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to keep you this long, but thanks.
No problem.
Thanks so much, and
my pleasure.
Thanks for the words that you gave, the words of wisdom, words of knowledge, and things like that as well during the conversations. It's much appreciated, and I really hope I really hope it touches somebody out there, when they listen to it.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, my friend. Keep in touch, okay?
I will do. Cheers, Donovan.
All right.
Bye.
All right, buddy. God bless.
All right, Josh, tell us how awesome the show is going to be.
You have to envision sort of like the creation of the universe. And how awesome that must have been. Well, it's going to be like that M3 core.
We are the ones that keep this city moving. You should see the black holes that we crawl up from. Backroom deals and brand new wheels. The middle class will never heal. Someone called the cops, well, they're under all our thumbs, cause they're dumb. Dumb, dumb, dumb.
Turning into, if you see the bulge at the top, it, yes.
Dumb, dumb, dumb. They'll never know what hit them.
Oh, come on.
Off the top and line the right guy's pockets. Buy your local office and then under Washington. We will dance and we will sing the progress that will never bring. Without for of a nation was never quite so fun, cause they're dumb. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Dumb. Dumb, 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 dumb. Cause they're dumb. Dumb, dumb, dumb. They'll never know what hit them. Never know what hit up. Tell 'em I'm the boss. Just tell 'em I'm the boss. Your Flatfoot's in the mail, and light that cigarette before all of it falls down. Your pretty words will fail. We know keep this city moving. We'll be the ones that will send you off to jail. We will dance and we will sing for the justice that our voice will bring. The justice of a nation.
The framing store and coffee shop somehow.
Dun dun dun. Dun. Dun dun dun. 'Cause you're done. Dun dun dun. You'll never know what hit ya. Keep that city moving. You'll never know what hit ya. Keep that city moving. You'll never know what hit ya. Keep that city moving. Oh, you'll never know what hit ya. Farewell to the boss.